Now, back to Miller on Sports, the show where everyone feels like rushing the field. Everything else is just talk.
Bringing our next guest, our final guest on this Wednesday afternoon. He's a well-known mentalist. You can find him on Twitter. @Kreskin is his handle. He has a show at the Florida Theater on July 28th at 7 p.m. Tickets are still available. And it seems like either later this week or next week, I'll give away some tickets for the show at the Florida Theater. He is the Amazing Kreskin, joining us right here on 1600 The Beach and Miller on Sports. How you doing, Amazing Kreskin?
Richard Miller, I got to tell you, I said to your producer, got a kick out of it. I said, I have some good news. I'm sober. Not that I drink, but rumors and nobody real. Hey, so I'm out of your area. I guess it's next. Is it next
next Saturday?
Saturday, yeah.
Yeah. It's coming up.
Full evening program. Going to be. Is it the? It's called the Florida Theater. Is it?
The Florida Theater, yes, the historical Florida Theater.
That's what I hear. You know, it's very, very interesting. As I travel around the world, and especially in the States and in Canada, I come upon occasionally a theater that really has a history behind it. And, you know, it's really kind of nice that some people have been wise enough to invest and hold on to such a thing, because too often, you know, things like this are torn down. Once they're torn down and the parking lot is built, they suddenly realize, wait a minute, that was a historic site, but then it's too late. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
By the way, I hear that the theater has had some ghostly sightings in it. How many? Is it on? How old the theater is it? You know, roughly?
I really don't know the exact year. Have they had sightings?
Yeah, there's a couple of TV crews that went there. So my program, which is a full evening show, the show will run about 2 hours and 30 minutes, almost 2 hours and 30 minutes. But I'm going to take advantage of that. Not that I'm selling ghosts at this time, but I think you're going to. Some of the people on stage are going to have an extraordinary experience, because the whole show is audience participation from beginning to end. You know, last year when I left the stage. New Year's Eve in this area of the country. I don't know if you have that in Florida, but they'll have what's called a first nighter on New Year's Eve, and at some of the theaters will have it as a special event so people can be staying in the area. When I left the stage last New Year's Eve, I had done last year, in 1 year, 261 appearances around the world.
Wow!
In a row most of the time.
How do you keep doing this? What keeps you going?
Everybody, well, the airline industry figures, and it's 3.5 years ago they announced that they've estimated that I've flown at that point a little over 3 million miles.
3 million. Wow. What do you get after? What do you get after 3 million miles? Do you get a steak or a drink, or maybe like? I got to tell you,
I got it. Everybody says, "Well, gee, Kreskin, look at all the trips you can go on." Some years ago, one of the major airlines called my office. I happened to be home. And I saw my secretary was kind of chuckling. I didn't know what it was all about. When she hung up, she said, you know, such and such an airline called. They said, tell Mr. Kreskin, he has so many frequent flyers, he can travel anywhere without paying for it. Well, let me tell you something. I don't want to go on a vacation on a plane. I'll go on a slow boat, station wagon. My life has really been, I have to tell you, really an adventure. And I guess when people come to see me, inherently they realize that they're not really coming to watch a show the way you would if you were going to see a movie or an illusionist or a dance or a play or what have you. My audience is part of my show. They're an extension, because without them I have nobody's thoughts to read, and I'm going to be reading the thoughts of people in my audience throughout the program. That's one of the most dramatic things. A couple of years ago, last year I was working for 3 months in Las Vegas at the Riviera, and one night I mentioned a couple of names when I was on stage, and this gentleman in the back of the nightclub stood up, and I said, what do the names mean to you? He said, Kreskin, my wife and I have 2 wonderful dogs, and we love the animals. That's the name of my dog. I said to him, sir, did you say to your wife earlier tonight, I wonder if Kreskin could tell me my Army serial number? And, Richard, all I can tell you is he slammed his fist down on this small nightclub table they were sitting at. He says, Kreskin, I sure did, but it was not here. It was at another place where my wife and I were having dinner, and then we came here to the Riviera a couple hours ago. So I said to him, do you know your Army serial number? Well, nobody, no man or woman ever forgets something like that. And I said, have you talked to anybody about it? He says, I don't think I ever did. And I doubt if anyone, no matter what their age, would ever, say, well, this is my serial number. He says, I don't think I've ever discussed it with anybody. I could have ended the show, Richard, at the end of this test. I wouldn't cheat my audience, but the reaction was tremendous because I gave him every single digit in order of his Army serial number, and he was in World War II. So it shows how the mind can work. And yet, on the other side of the coin, last year, I don't know what I'm saying, not last year, a few months ago, I was touring the state of Washington, and it was at a theater, and I mentioned some names, and this lady stood up. She's sitting in the back. She said, well, they're friends of mine that I had when I was in school as a kid. I haven't seen them for years. And as she started to sit down, I said to her, why did you think, and I said a first name, like Jane or Alice or Mary, I don't remember. It was a very simple first name. And she let out this quiet scream, nothing horrific, but I said, are you all right? And she says, well, yes. I said, what do you mean? So help me, Richard. She points to her right, seated on her right, and said, this is my husband. She points to her left and says, these are two friends of mine. I said, yes, ma'am. What's the point you're making? She says, Kreskin, I'm expecting my family, friends, everyone knows that I refuse to tell anybody the name of I'm naming my child until it's born, and you just announced the name out loud.
Wow, that is incredible. The Amazing Kreskin joining us right here on this Wednesday afternoon, a well-known mentalist. You can find him on Twitter as well, at Kreskin. He has a show at the Florida Theater coming up on July 28th at 7 p.m., so get your tickets. They are still available. He is the Amazing Kreskin. Now, let me ask you this, because I was reading this story where you were going to assist the Toronto Maple Leafs with their lease. Can you get into more detail for our listeners?
Well, let me tell you something. I mean that this is quite separate from my performances around the world. For years, early in my career, when I was not traveling heavily, I had an office with a clinical psychologist and Dr. Harold Hansen. He's no longer with me, and a flood of memories came back to me 2 days ago because at a theater here in New Jersey, about 7 members of his family came, and I hadn't seen some of them, including his wife, for 30 years. But I used to work with patients of his using certain abilities I've had to help them improve and in support of his therapy. He was a psychologist. But anyway, the bottom line is I was touring Canada last year, and I heard about the team, Toronto Maple Leafs, and they have rather a striking track record in recent years. Richard, it's one of a disaster. They haven't won. What's the award that they
Stanley Cup? Yeah,
they haven't won that for 20 some years. I can't remember how many years it was. So a number of and I tour Canada for 8 or 10 weeks every year, and some of the press said, Kreskin, have you ever thought have any idea feeling about the record? So well, anyway, I made an offer, and I made it very seriously, and I made it on a number of television shows, and a number of sports writers interviewed me at some depth, and that is that I said I'd like to meet with the Maple Leafs, not now, but a couple of weeks before their season starts this coming fall. I need to see them on a number of occasions, each time for approximately an hour, maybe 3 or 4 times, and I believe. And this is where I'm not even joking in any slides. I believe that I could help them turn around what has been an extraordinarily poor record. The problem is certainly the team can buy the best coaches and what have you, but when you have the psychological factor hanging over you, and they haven't had one bad season, they haven't had 2 bad seasons, they've had a number. It hangs almost as a negative factor, and I believe if I could see the team and work with them, I could train their mind to think otherwise and help them break the cycle. Unfortunately, the owners did not accept my offer, and what can I say? I'm not a miracle worker, but I would have loved to take a shot. And you know what the press said to me?
What's that?
They said, "Hell, what does the team have to lose? What in the world do they have to lose?"
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. And it's one of those things, sir.
You can see him, his show at the Florida Theater, July 28th, 7 p.m. You can also find him on Twitter at Kreskin, the Amazing Kreskin, a very well-known mentalist. The Amazing Kreskin, thank you so much. Enjoyed it, and best of luck with the show right here in Jacksonville.
Richard, I won't say goodbye. I have a new book coming out in a couple months. When it comes out, let you and I talk about it over there. I'll get a copy to you. But meanwhile, in the spirit of
getting warmer, and now more wild.